Okay, everybody say hi.
Hi.
Grandma, grandpa, boyfriend, boyfriend's mom.
Hello.
Thank you. Okay. Hi everybody, I'm glad you could all make it here with me today. I am here to give you a presentation required by my oral and interpersonal communications class. More specifically, I am going to be informing you guys on the culture of the Somali people. Now, would you be surprised to know that a culture whose home country has been devastated by war, by poverty, famine, and an unstable government has one of the lowest life expectancies out of anywhere in the world? Now, this probably isn't surprising, but would you be surprised to know that these people actually have the highest fertility rate out of anywhere in the world? Thank you to World Atlas for these statistics, and we're going to move on to a brief overview. If you were previously unaware, Somali people originate from the country of Somalia, which you can see on the map is located at the Horn of Africa, and it has coastal borders on two sides, made up by the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean. The two official state languages of Somalia are Somalian and Modern Standard Arabic, and the official state religion is Islam. Thank you to Cultural Atlas for this information. We're going to dive right into some history. During the colonial time before Somalia was Somalia, it was actually separated and owned by 5 different countries. In 1960, we see British Somaliland and Italian Somaliland come together and they achieve independence. In 1991, we see the start of the Civil War. And in 2013, we see one of Somalia's greater achievements where the U.S. recognizes them officially as a state. And in 2018, at the International Somali Awards, we see the UN praise the Somali for nothing other than the Somali spirit. Thank you to Cultural Atlas, The Atlantic, CNN, and the UN for this information. Moving on to some history in between their interactions with the United States, we see the U.S. Embassy close its doors in their Somalia location when the Civil War started. In 1992, Bush receives pressure during his presidency and starts sending food and supplies into the country. Towards the end of that year, we see the UN approve a U.S. military mission, Operation Restore Hope, in which troops are sent out to protect the supplies that we are sending. In 1993, the tragedy we all know today as Black Hawk Down occurs, and a year later, the mission is ended. Moving on to Obama's presidency, fast forwarding a little bit, in 2011 we see him grant over $127 million in aid to Somalia. And now if we could take a look at a video provided by YouTube and Business Insider, we're going to look at some of the things that occurred later in Obama's presidency. Okay, again, thank you to YouTube and Business Insider for that video. Fast forwarding to Trump's presidency, in 2018, we see him reestablishment a permanent diplomatic presence in the country of Somalia for the first time since the U.S. Embassy closed its doors in 1991 at the time of the Civil War. And a 2015 study from CNN tells us that there are approximately 150,000. You can pause it to turn that off. In 2015, that CNN study tells us that there are approximately 150,000 Somalis here in the U.S. That number is cumulative between refugees and those who have immigrated over on their own. Thank you to The Atlantic and CNN for this information. transitioning on to look at some norms and values, their interaction with each other. In regards to family, they live in multi-generational households. It is not uncommon for extended family to live under the same roof. They're extremely collectivist. They pool resources, funds. It's not uncommon for someone to discipline somebody else's kids. This is acceptable. Families are divided into clans. These clans can have subclans. The clans are determined by the father's ancestry. And we see arranged marriages are the only acceptable form of marriage as due to their religion, and polygamy is acceptable in an excess of up to 4 wives as long as the man can financially support each and every one. Thank you to Cultural Atlas for that information. A couple more norms and values. We're going to look at religion. As we learned, Islamic is the official state religion. They are predominantly Sunni Islam. Sunni to Islam is what a branch of Christianity would be. The deity that they worship is Allah. Their sacred texts are the Quran and the Sunnah. Their religion can have professional, personal, and even legal effects on their lives. Entire communities shut down for what we see. Salat is their daily prayer, which occurs 5 times a day in accordance to the location of the sun in the sky. And failure to comply with these things like that can actually have criminal punishments. The most important religiously observed holiday is actually a month long. It is known as the month of Ramadan, and it includes an entire month of fasting and is celebrated at the end with a festival. Our next bullet point is halal, which is a religious practice involving the food that they eat. In the exact moment that an animal is killed for the purpose of eating, they thank Allah, and if this is not done, they will not partake in the meal. Alcohol and pork are forbidden as a part of the religion. And I'm going to have you guys look at this little handout for me here. And in this handout, you will see a photo of 2 people eating a traditional Somali dish. And you will see that they are eating both with their right hand. They are using their fingers to scoop, never allowing the food to be in the palm of the hand. The right hand is the holy hand, the clean hand, never to use the left. We also see a banana that is peeled from the bottom up. And on both of their plates, their food is traditionally spicy, and they take a bite of the banana between every few bites of food in order to cleanse the palate. And to wrap it up with some do's and taboos of their communication, do make eye contact but avoid staring. Staring for too long can be interpreted as disrespectful. Do respect elders. This is extremely important. Stand, greet them when they walk in or exit a room. Offer them your seat if there are no other seats available. Do expect brutal honesty. Interpersonal communication between Somalis is often very direct and very blunt. Expect lots of nonverbal communication. Just as I have used my hands to gesture throughout this speech, they use lots and lots of that. Their pitch, their tone, they can often seem excited or angry, and it is just common for them to stay at such an elevated level. Some taboos would include no profanity. It is never acceptable to swear. Do not address them as African. They feel a much higher level of respect when you address them specifically as Somalian, as how hard their country has worked to aspire to be where they are now. Do avoid sarcasm. It is hard to interpret between those cultural differences. Avoid physical contact with the opposite gender because religiously prior to marriage it is unacceptable. Do not be offended by tardiness. It is actually often a sign of closeness or appreciation for someone that they know you would not be upset. And do not dress immodestly. Now, does anybody have any questions? We're going to move on before we conclude.
How come you didn't talk about Somali pirates?
I chose not to talk about Somali pirates because I feel like that is one of the things that when somebody says Somali, most people think of, and there is bad in every culture, and I chose not to highlight that, not to talk about it, and just to really look at the key values of this culture.
What is the Al-Shabaab group mentioned in the video?
The Al-Shabaab group mentioned in the video is actually a militant Islamic extremist group. So ties to Al-Qaeda. It's when we're crossing the borders between just practicing their faith and their religion for Islam and crossing over into terrorism. No other questions? Okay. Well, I'm glad you could all see how a country that suffers through what they suffer through is able to prosper in the world that we live in today, and a works cited page to wrap everything up. Thank you, guys.